Hello guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. So on today's video we're going to be making this cowl neck dress. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, do keep on watching and let's get right into the video. So guys, this is the pattern we're going to be working with, and I'm just going to go ahead to label them so you know what line fits for what. So this is our bust point line, our under bust line, our waistline, and our hip line. So the length of this pattern is going to be 52 inches because we want it to be long but not too long at the same time. So now what I'm going to do is impute my body measurement divided by 4. So my bust measurement divided by 4, my under bust, my waist and hip measurement divided by 4. So I'm just going to mark that out. So for the bottom part here, we're going to take note of our hip measurement, and we're going to add 2 to 3 inches to that to the measurement we have there, and then we're going to mark it out. So if your hip measurement is 9 inches, you're going to add 2 to 3 inches to that 9 inches, and then you're going to mark it out. So that is what I did now, and I'm going to go ahead to rule the lines from my hip line to meet with the full length of our dress. Next, from the bottom part here, I'm going to come up by ½ an inch, and then I'm going to create a curve at that point there. Sorry you could not see it, that part wasn't in frame. Next, from the shoulder point here, I'm going to go in by 2 inches, and I'm going to mark this because this is going to be a halter neck dress. And then from this point here, what I have there is 1.5. I'm going to divide that into 2, and then I'm going to mark it out like so. And then I'm going to use my ruler to rule this out to create that halter neck effect there. And we're going to be cutting the back piece and the front piece together with this same pattern. So I'm going to mark out the back depth, the neck depth for the back. So I'm going to come down by 1 inch with this marker so you do not get confused which part is the back and which part is the front. And I'm going to curve that back to create the neck depth for the back. After doing that, I'm going to come down from that point there again by 1 inches or 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to create a curve from that 2 inches mark we made initially all the way down to that 1.5 inch mark we have there. This is because we are going to have a closure at the back there, so that is going to serve as that closure. Next, I'm going to decide how deep and open I want my back to be, and I'm going to go ahead to mark 11 inches here. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead to mark 11 inches, and then we're going to go ahead to curve this all the way to the armhole area. So we're just going to create the curve. So this is what our pattern is looking like, and this is for the back piece and the front piece. We're going to go ahead to work on the front part first, and then we're going to alter the pattern to use the same pattern for the back. Now I'm going to move on to cut out the pattern. After cutting out our pattern, for this part here where I mentioned was for the back piece, I'm just going to go ahead to place a pattern paper on that part just to trace out that part for the back piece, because we're not going to cut this separately. So I'm just going to trace what I have there out on the fresh piece of pattern paper. After tracing that out, I'm just using my tape to cross-check the measurement we have there with the one we have on the traced pattern paper, just to make sure everything is correct. And after that, I'm going to just go ahead to cut it out. So next, I'm going to take note of my chest line, and I'm going to go ahead to mark this out, and this is 1 inch above my bust point line. After marking this out, we're going to cut all the way through, but not to the very end. You want to stop about ½ inch or 1 inch towards the end, the way I did here on this video. So this is what is going to help us create that cowl neck effect, as you can see right now. So we're going to move on to take the pattern to transfer it onto our fabric. So guys, this is the fabric we're going to be working with for this tutorial. This is a red crepe fabric, and you can see that the fabric doesn't stretch. It doesn't stretch on both sides. So this is what it's looking like. Let's go right into the cutting part. So now I placed the fabric on fold, and I placed our pattern down on the fabric. So we're just going to open this up to start cutting. And now if you want your cowl effect to be a bit deeper or less deeper, you can just adjust that from this point. You can work with 6 inches, as you can see here, or you can work with 7 inches, the way I did mine. So I'm going to be working with 7 inches. I'm going to go ahead to pin my patterns down to the fabric for me to cut it out seamlessly. So I'm just going to go ahead to pin it on all the sides to enable me cut this better. Now I'm going to bring in the back piece. This is the neckline area of the back piece, and this is because we are going to be cutting the neckline and the neckline for the back and the front together. So it's going to be a cut together piece at that side there. So I'm just going to tape this down to my initial pattern I have here. So this is what it's looking like. Now we're going to cut this, and because we're going to cut the interfacing for the front as well as our main fabric piece together, we're going to go ahead to curve this all the way to the top. You can see the shape that I'm trying to create at this top part here. So I'm just using my pattern master as a guide to rule this all the way from the top part there down back to my neckline area, so you can see what it's looking like. And I'm going to go ahead to add ½ inch sewing allowance around the sides for the rest of the pattern we have at the top there. So I'm just going to curve this out, adding ½ inches allowance at the sides, but for the main bodies we're going to be adding 1 inch sewing allowance to that. So we're going to go ahead to cut this out. So guys, after cutting the front piece, we're going to go ahead to manipulate this to enable us cut the back piece. So I'm just going to cut out this part from this point here, and we have our back piece ready for us to work on. So I went ahead to place the pattern on the fabric, and the fabric is on fold, and I left out 1 inch zipper allowance at this point here. And what I also did on this waistline area here is I went in by ½ inch just to eliminate bulging at the zipper area here, and I'm going ahead to cut that ½ inch out. So we're going to take that out, and then after that we're just going to cut out the rest parts we have left. Now I'm going to go ahead to cut the rest part of the pattern, and you can see that I'm leaving out ½ inch at the top, and at the sides here I'm going to leave out 1 inch the way we did for the front piece. So this is our front pattern, and this is what we're going to start with. So this is the added part, the back part we attach to the front to cut together. So from that point, I'm just going to fold it in like this, and then after folding this in, I'm going to go ahead to pin it down so we can take this to the machine to sew the both parts we have there. After pinning this down, we're going to go ahead to fold this part in by 1/2 inch as well, then we sew on both sides. So we're going to take this to the machine to do the same thing on both sides. You can see that this part here I already went ahead to sew it. So I'm just going to go ahead to trim off the excesses I have at that point where we already went ahead to sew. So I'm just going to trim this all the way to where our sewing stops, and I'm just going to curve out the excesses down to the remaining part of the fabric. I hope you understand. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to give answers to whatever question you have. So you can see that I went ahead to flip this to the right side, and this is what it's looking like. I'm going to go ahead to do the same thing for the other part as well, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So after sewing the second part as well, I'm going to also flip this to the other side, as you can see me doing right now. After flipping this to the other side, you want to give it a good press. So this is what we should have when we are done. You can see this is what it's looking like. Now for the armhole area, this part here, we're going to go ahead to just close up those rough edges, and I'm going to bring in this piece of fabric that I went ahead to trace out according to the armhole area I have there. So I'm just going to place this down on the fabric from the ending of where we have that sewing part there. So we're just going to pin this all the way from the top to the bottom part. After pinning this down, I'm going to go ahead to sew by 1/2 inch all the way down, and then we're going to flip this to the other side to top stitch. This is what we have after we top stitched on it. After sewing, we went ahead to top stitch on both sides, so we did the same thing for both sides. Do not forget to overlock the rough edges on the sides here, as well as the one on this part here, so you have a neat finish. So now we're going to go ahead to start working on our back piece. So this is the back piece, and I went ahead to cut little lining piece to cover up this top part here, as you can see. So we're just going to place this like so, right sides facing each other, and we're going to sew along this line by 1/2 inch and stop at this point here where we have our line that indicates where our zipper is to be placed. So I'm going to go ahead to take this to the machine to sew. After sewing, this is what we have. I went ahead to top stitch on it, and that is totally optional. I only did that because there was no light at the time for me to give it a good press. So this is what it's looking like. Now we're going to go ahead to place this down and bring in the second back piece and place it on this one as well, in order for us to start joining the back pieces together. After placing both back pieces together, I'm going to go ahead to pin everything together in place, just so it is going to be very easy for us to take this to the machine to sew. So I'm going to go ahead to pin this from the top part all the way to the bottom part. Now from this point we have here, I'm going to go ahead to stitch it all the way to this point here, and this is because we are going to have a slit at this bottom part, so we are not going to stitch this all the way to the very end. So from this point here, we're going to take it all the way to this point. So this is what we have after we was done sewing. I'm bringing in our zipper now to fix in our zipper to the zipper allowance. I'm just going to place the zipper here, and then I'm going to go ahead to just pin this in place all the way to the top. This is going to be a very easy way to fix your zipper, especially if you're a beginner. So I'm going to go ahead to pin the zipper on both sides. After pinning down the zipper, we're just going to sew along the sides of the zipper on both sides. After sewing, this is what we have here. You can see that I went ahead to finish up this part, and I'm going to show you the same for this other side here. I'm going to open up the lining piece, and then we're going to place the lining piece down on the zipper part. So now our zipper is in between our main fabric piece and our lining piece. And now we're going to just stitch this on this part by 1/2 inch. After stitching that down, you should have something like this. So guys, after we went ahead to sew along this part here, we also went ahead to sew along this part as well, to just hold down that place and make sure everything is in place. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead to trim off the excess zipper we have there, and then we're just going to trim off any excess allowance we might have at this part here. You can see that I'm going ahead to trim off the excesses we have there, and I'm going to flip it over to the other side after trimming out the excesses. So this is what we should have when we are done with that. Make sure you're ironing as you go so you have a neat finish. So this is what our zipper is looking like after we're done fixing it. This is what the outer part is looking like, and then this is what the inner part is looking like. Like I said earlier, do not forget to overlock the rough edges you might have at the sides of your dress so you have a neat and clean finish. Now what we're going to do next is we're just going to lay down our back piece like so, and then we're going to bring in our front piece to add to this, and we're going to lay them right sides facing each other. I already went ahead to mark out my body measurement on the front piece to enable us fix the back and front piece together. Now I'm going to go ahead to pin everything together. This is going to make sewing very easy, and I'm just going to go ahead to pin everything down and take this to the machine to join the back piece and the front piece together. So this is the lines we're going to sew along. After joining the back and the front together, we're also going to go ahead to fold the rough edges at the bottom just so everything is looking nice and neat. So you can either choose to fold the bottom part, or you can just overlock the bottom part, whichever works for you. And with that, we've come to the end of the tutorial. This is the final result. If you enjoyed watching, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not yet subscribed already, and I will see you on another video. Bye guys.